He stole every dollar my dying mother left me, but he had no idea what I was about to do. I never expected a text message to be the way I found out my mother had died. There was no call, no warning, just a curt 3-line message from my brother, Marcus. Mom passed last night. Quiet, we handled it already. No need to fly back. I read it 3 times. We handled it already. My stomach tightened. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 weeks. Not because I didn't want to, but because the last few times I'd called, Marcus said she was too tired to talk. I was across the country in Portland, and they were still in Maryland. I'd trusted him. Trusted that when he said she was resting, she really was. Trusted that when he told me not to worry, he meant it. But now she was dead, and they handled it already. No funeral invite, no obituary, no call from a doctor, no hospice nurse update, just silence and a text. That was the first cut, a quiet betrayal, almost surgical in how clean it felt. But it wasn't the last, not even close. My name is Elise Garner. I'm 34 years old. I run a modest architecture firm, nothing flashy, but enough to pay the bills and keep a little pride in my pocket. I left home when I was 19, after our dad died. It had always been Marcus who stayed close. Marcus, the golden boy, the loyal son. And me? I was the one who abandoned the family. At least, that's the narrative Marcus liked to tell. We were never close, even as kids. He had this way of turning everything into a performance. Every family dinner was a chance for him to rehearse some fake concern about me. How I seemed lost, how I could have done more for Mom. I used to brush it off. I figured he was insecure, that maybe he felt stuck, staying home while I got to leave. But the truth was darker. It wasn't insecurity, it was ambition. 3 days after the text, I called the estate attorney. I wanted to know about the will, what arrangements had been made, what needed to be signed. But the attorney, a Mr. Haskins, was oddly cold. He said Marcus had handled everything, that the estate had already been settled. Settled? I asked. How? Wasn't probate required? I was told by the executor that no formal probate was needed, he said. Your mother's assets had already been transferred via joint accounts and beneficiary designations. I didn't understand. Mom had never mentioned changing her accounts, and she'd always told me, explicitly, that her life insurance was meant to be split evenly between Marcus and me. Who's the executor? I asked. There was a pause. Your brother, he said. Of course. That night, I sat in my apartment in silence, my phone on the table, the lights off, just me and the quiet hum of a betrayal that was still unfolding. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stared at the wall and thought. He planned this, he had access, he had time, and he had motive. What I didn't know yet was how far he'd gone, how much he had taken, how many lies he had told to seal me out. I didn't know about the house deed, the forged medical directive, or the closed accounts, not yet, but I felt it in my bones. I wasn't just forgotten, I was erased. I texted him later that night. Can we talk? I have questions about the estate. He replied instantly. There's nothing to talk about. Everything went to me. That was Mom's decision. That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just the kind of message someone sends when they're sure you won't fight back. And for a while, I didn't. I froze. I questioned myself. I replayed every conversation I'd had with Mom over the last year. Was she angry at me? Did I miss something? Did I imagine her telling me about the insurance split? But the truth was quieter and more cruel. Marcus hadn't just stolen the inheritance. He'd stolen the story. He'd turned himself into the suffering son, the loyal caretaker. He made me the absent one, the unworthy one. And once he had everyone believing that, it was easy to lock me out of everything else. But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. I didn't sleep for days. I kept thinking about the last time I talked to Mom. She'd sounded tired but clear. She told me she missed me, that she was proud of the way I'd built my life, that she wanted to see me again, maybe in spring once she felt stronger. Now it was fall and she was gone, and everything she owned, every account, every memory-laced possession, was suddenly under my brother's name. I requested the death certificate. That's when the second red flag went up. It had been filed almost instantly, and the informant listed Marcus, not a nurse, not a doctor, not even a hospice worker, just him. I called the insurance company next. When I asked about the policy, the representative hesitated. "I'm sorry, Ms. Garner. That information is confidential. Only the listed beneficiary may access it." I tried to stay calm. "I'm her daughter. I believe I was a listed beneficiary." There was a pause. I could hear her typing. Only one primary beneficiary was named, a Marcus Garner. No contingent, no split, no record of any previous designation. That was the moment my breath caught in my throat. He'd changed it. Or maybe she had. The question tore at me. It scratched at old wounds, like maybe I had been selfish. Maybe Mom really did lose faith in me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Marcus wanted me to doubt myself. He needed me to believe this was my fault, so I wouldn't fight. A week passed, then 2. The obituary finally appeared, buried in the back of the local paper, just a few lines, no mention of me. Not even survived by 2 children, just Marcus Garner, devoted son and caregiver. I stared at it, fists clenched, phone trembling in my hand. That was my family too. That was my mother. I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. I reached out to an old neighbor, Mrs. Langley. She and my mom used to garden together. We chatted over a video call, and when I asked how Mom was in her final days, her tone shifted. "She was in pain, Elise, but she kept asking for you. She'd say, 'I want to see my girl again before I go.'" I felt my throat tighten. "She knew you were busy, but she missed you. And Marcus, well, he told us you weren't coming. Said you'd moved on, that you wanted nothing to do with the family." I couldn't speak. My chest ached with a kind of grief I didn't have words for. Not just loss, but theft. He had stolen my goodbye, and I would never get it back. I started requesting records, hospital visits, bank statements, public property filings. It wasn't easy. Marcus had moved quickly, closing accounts, transferring titles, liquidating assets before probate could catch up. But he wasn't as smart as he thought. He'd forgotten about the joint CD account Mom had opened with both our names years ago. I pulled the transaction history. 2 weeks before she died, he cleaned it out. $42,000 gone overnight. He'd also refinanced her house while she was under heavy medication. The notarized documents had a shaky signature, barely legible. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just selfishness, it was fraud. I called him again, just once. He answered with the smug tone I'd come to expect. "Still digging?" "I know about the CD," I said. "And the refi, did you forge her signature?" A short laugh. "You think you're going to sue me? With what money? Elise, grow up. She wanted me to have everything. You ran off. I stayed. I stayed. That line echoed like a verdict in my mind. He always used it. Like geography was a substitute for love. Like living near her made him a better child. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just listened, memorized every arrogant syllable. And when he hung up, I called an attorney. Mr. Wallace was calm, sharp, the kind of man who didn't blink when handed a mess like this. He listened to everything, reviewed the paperwork I'd gathered. When he finished, he leaned back and said, "If we can prove undue influence, we can contest the will. But more importantly, if we can prove financial elder abuse, we go beyond civil, we go criminal." That was the first time I felt something like hope. Not vengeance, not yet, just oxygen, like I could breathe again. I wasn't planning to destroy my brother, I was planning to expose him. But as the pieces kept falling into place, the lies, the manipulation, the smirking confidence, I began to understand something about Marcus. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. He thought he deserved it all. He truly believed the role he'd cast himself in: martyr, protector, victim of the selfish sister. And that made him dangerous, because a man who believes his own lie will never stop lying. But I wasn't the same sister he remembered. I wasn't 19 anymore. I wasn't running. I was coming home. I flew back to Maryland without telling anyone. No family, no old friends, not even my assistant. I needed to move quietly, like fog rolling into familiar streets, settling into corners Marcus thought he owned. I rented a small extended stay suite near the county courthouse. Nothing fancy, just close enough to walk, with a kitchenette and a view of the brick buildings I hadn't seen in over a decade. The air smelled like mulch and wet leaves, the same way it had the day I left. But this time I wasn't running away from anything. I was hunting. The first few days I lived in public records. I combed property deeds, witness affidavits, transaction logs. I requested the power of attorney documents Marcus had used to access Mom's accounts. Most had been signed within a 2-month window, after her cancer had reached her bones, and she was on high doses of morphine. One signature, on a house transfer form, was dated 3 days before her death. I found a notary seal on it, but when I called the listed notary, her voice cracked the illusion wide open. "I don't remember this one. What was the address again?" I read it to her. She was silent. "I was out of state that week," she finally said. "That's not my signature." I had her affidavit signed within 24 hours. Then I found the letter. It was tucked away in an old box in Mrs. Langley's attic. Mom had given her a few keepsakes after a storm damaged her garage. It was handwritten, slanted, a little shaky, but it was her. "If anything happens to me, I want Elise to know I love her. I know we drifted. That was my fault too. But she was never gone. Not from my heart, not for a single day." My hands trembled as I read it. Then I folded it with care and slid it into my legal binder. It wasn't admissible in court, but it was enough to keep me going. Mr. Wallace filed the motion 2 weeks later. Formal petition to challenge the estate distribution under suspicion of undue influence, forgery, and elder financial abuse. Marcus was served at work. He managed a local dealership now, wearing suits he couldn't afford before Mom got sick. According to a former co-worker I'd contacted anonymously, he'd bragged that everything changed once their mom left it all to him. Said it like he'd won something, like this was a game. He called me that night. No hello, no anger, just, You really want to drag this into court? I let the silence answer him. You think you'll win? He sneered. Mom made her choices. You just can't stand not being the favorite. My voice was steady, cold. She wasn't supposed to pick a favorite. She was our mother. He tried to laugh, but it cracked halfway through. She was dying, he said, lower now. She was confused. She wanted to simplify things. Number you wanted to simplify things, I said. So you took everything and rewrote the ending. Then I hung up. That week, I visited Mom's house. The property was locked behind a cheap security system and a new gate. Marcus wasn't living there. He was flipping it, trying to sell fast. I walked around the side, looked through the window into her old bedroom. Empty. No more perfume bottles. No more books on the nightstand. Just stripped walls and hollow drawers. But I didn't feel rage. I felt resolve. He could whitewash the house, but not the past and not the evidence. The investigator I hired found more. A pattern of cash withdrawals weeks before Mom passed. Large donations to Marcus's church, where he had recently sponsored a renovation project with a plaque in his name. An old neighbor even saw him moving boxes out of the garage late at night, 2 days before she died. Quiet, rushed, secretive. He wasn't grieving, he was inventorying. The final piece came from a nurse named Georgia who'd done hospice visits. I tracked her down through Mom's old provider. She remembered me. More importantly, she remembered the tension in the house. She asked about you a lot, Georgia said. Said she wanted to record a message, something for after. But Marcus always interrupted. Said she needed rest, then he'd turn off the camera on her tablet. I felt my throat tighten. Did she ever record anything? There was a pause. I think she tried. Check the cloud account. Her email was her first name and your dad's birthday. She used to say she never forgot that day. That night, I logged into her old tablet. Found a single saved video, 4 minutes long, dated 2 weeks before her death. In it, she looked pale. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were sharp. I don't know if this will reach you, Elise, but if it does, don't let him silence you. I didn't know what he was doing until it was too late, but I never changed the will. I didn't mean to leave you out. You were my strength, always, even from far away. I pressed pause, then rewind, then play again. It was everything, and it changed everything. Court was scheduled for a Tuesday. Marcus walked in, wearing a charcoal gray suit, fake humility folded neatly into his expression. He looked polished, composed, until he saw me. I was already seated beside Mr. Wallace, my binder open, my eyes steady. He gave me a half smile, the same one he used to wear when he lied to our mother's face. It didn't work anymore. The judge was methodical. She listened, took notes, asked Marcus to explain the absence of a formal will, despite previous legal counsel suggesting one existed. He said Mom changed her mind, claimed she went non-formal for simplicity. Then he said something that almost made me flinch. She said Elise had her own life. She didn't want to burden her. Burden. That word sat heavy in the air, daring me to react. I didn't. Mr. Wallace calmly slid the hospice nurse's affidavit across the table. Then the video. The courtroom went still. The judge watched the full recording. Mom's face on screen. Her words, gentle but piercing, unraveled everything Marcus had claimed. She hadn't changed her will. She hadn't excluded me. She'd been silenced. When the video ended, The only sound was Marcus shifting in his chair. The judge turned to him. "Mr. Garner, did you witness this recording?" He swallowed hard. "No, she never told me about it." "Did you ever restrict her access to communication devices?" No, I just thought she needed rest." Her eyes narrowed. "You thought she needed rest, or you needed silence?" He didn't answer. Then came the financials, the forged notary signature, the withdrawals, the wire transfers to his personal account labeled estate clearing. The former bank employee testified that Marcus claimed to be acting under emergency authority. But no emergency order was ever filed. He looked smaller by the minute, still smug but slipping. I didn't gloat, I didn't smirk. I watched quietly as his carefully painted world began to peel strip by strip. He started interrupting. "Blamed the confusion of grief," said the hospice nurse, misunderstood. "Tried to paint me as the opportunist swooping in too late." But then Mrs. Langley testified. She told the judge what Mom said, that she missed me, that she wanted to see me, that Marcus told everyone I had moved on. That was the moment his hands clenched into fists on the table. The mask was cracking. The judge called a recess. Marcus brushed past me in the hallway. His voice was low, sharp. "You think this makes you better than me?" She leaned on me. I was the one there. I didn't move. "You were there. I won't argue that." He stared at me like I was supposed to break. Like this was the part where I'd cry or scream or beg. Instead, I said, "And you used that time to take everything she had while she couldn't fight back. You didn't stay to care. You stayed to conquer." He turned, walked off, no words left, just the sound of control slipping through his fingers. When court resumed, the judge didn't need much time. She ruled in my favor. Marcus's actions constituted undue influence. The power of attorney was revoked posthumously. The estate was to be reopened and split evenly under intestate law. But the judge didn't stop there. She referred the case to the district attorney for possible criminal charges, financial elder abuse, and fraudulent misappropriation of assets. Marcus froze, not just defeated, exposed, and for the first time since this all began, I exhaled, not because I'd won, but because the truth finally had a voice again. 3 weeks later, I stood in Mom's garden. It was overgrown now. Tangled vines wrapped around the trellis she used to prune every Sunday. I brought clippers, gloves, a new rose bush. I didn't want to erase what had happened. I just wanted something new to grow. As I dug into the soil, I found a small stone she'd painted years ago. On it were the words, "Still roots, even in silence." She knew I'd come back, maybe not like this, maybe not for war, but for truth, and I had delivered it. Marcus didn't go to jail, at least not yet. The DA launched an investigation. Subpoenas were issued. The paper trail Marcus thought he'd buried was already unraveling. The nurse, the notary, the bank records, everything pointed to calculated deception. But criminal justice moves slowly. In the meantime, I received full administrative authority over the estate. It was bittersweet, because winning doesn't bring anyone back. It doesn't fill the hole, it just stops the bleeding. I returned to the house one last time before the sale. Boxes lined the hallway. The furniture was already moved out by a professional company. The walls echoed with nothing, but in the upstairs closet, I found something Marcus had missed. A small box pushed behind an old suitcase. Inside were photographs, me and Mom at the beach, a birthday card I'd made her in high school, and a folded note in her handwriting. I hope you find this one day. I'm sorry we wasted time. I thought distance meant you didn't care. I know now it meant you were surviving. You always were my strong one. I sat down on the closet floor and cried. Not the sharp, angry kind of crying I'd felt when the betrayal first hit. This was slower, quieter, like something soft had been returned to me. 2 days later, Marcus showed up unannounced. He didn't knock. He stood at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, like he was still trying to decide whether to be proud or ashamed. I stepped out onto the porch. Neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You happy now?" I looked at him, really looked. He was smaller, not just in stature, but in presence. The arrogance had drained. The polished version of him had dulled. He looked like a man who'd finally run out of lies to wear. "I'm not happy," I said, "but I'm not ashamed." He exhaled. "She talked about you, you know, even when she was mad. I didn't want to be left with nothing." "You weren't," I said quietly. "You were left with her love. That was supposed to be enough." He nodded, eyes glassy. Then, "It never was." He turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw him. I didn't forgive him. I don't think I ever will. Forgiveness isn't a reward for regret. It's something earned over time. But I didn't carry hate with me either, just clarity. Marcus didn't break me. He revealed me. He showed me what I was capable of when everything I trusted was taken away. And now I was done playing small. 6 months later, I sat in a new office, mine. Same city, different skyline. I opened a satellite branch of my firm right there in Maryland, not because I needed the business, but because legacy demanded it. I used part of the estate to establish a scholarship fund in Mom's name. Not flashy, just quiet, consistent support for women studying architecture or elder care. 2 things she loved, 2 things that built who I was. Her house was sold, the proceeds split. I didn't keep the property. I didn't need a monument. I needed motion. Every now and then, people ask if I ever reconciled with Marcus. I tell them the truth. I didn't go looking for peace. I built it, in boardrooms, in plans, in small victories that didn't make headlines, but made something better than revenge, structure, integrity, control. Sometimes I walk past the courthouse just to remember, not the battle, not the case, but the moment I realized I didn't need to be loud to be powerful. He tried to erase me, but now every decision I make echoes with her voice. He stole the inheritance, but I became the boss, not just of the estate, of the story, of myself. If you've ever been betrayed by family and rose stronger, share your story in the comments. And if this hit close to home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more true stories of quiet revenge and powerful comebacks.